Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So today we're going to be breaking down my investment thesis in Palantir and why they have no competition. And generally, my investment thesis is really simple. I invest in people and operations that I think will continually innovate over time. And a technology moat is typically made up of these types of cultures, these technology cultures where every little innovation is valued and encouraged, and all of those little innovations lead up to a massive moat. A good example of this is a company like Google, who's managed to do this extremely well, and they continually reinvent themselves through this cycle of innovation. But that has to be a cultural value, and it's driven by the leadership. And it's my belief that Palantir obviously has those leaders and that culture. So the first thing we're going to do today is look at a clip from a podcast that I found the other day that was really good, and they are going to echo some of what I'm saying here and like what drives technical innovation and why Palantir sort of has no competitor. It really doesn't, in my opinion. I don't believe anyone competes with Palantir. I believe Palantir is a true 0-to-1 move. But I think this conversation is relevant because it includes a computer scientist and investor in the startup space. So get ready. Here we go.
Through all the public documents, the last quarters they've been public, is that their contribution margin has been going up meaningfully, right? And that has translated into just much better financials. Why is contribution margin going up? They tend to attribute it very often to increased speed and distribution.
Can you explain to everyone, just for clarity, what does contribution margin mean?
Well, I'm just pulling this up. I'm going to read the definition per the 10K.
Perfect.
We define contribution margin as revenue less our cost of revenue and sales and marketing expenses, excluding stock-based compensation divided by revenue, right? So basically, if contribution margin is going up and they're hiring more salespeople, which they are, according to the Q4 transcript, I think they were going to hire 200 more salespeople, right? Then in the numerator, what is possibly changing? It's the cost of revenue, right? Because sales and marketing expenses are going up. So how does cost of revenue decrease in a SaaS? By decreasing the cost of distribution. And if you read the quarterly calls and stuff, every single time the CFO starts, we have these amazing results because we have more efficiency in distribution.
Wow.
Which is, when I first looked at this company, I was like, well, this has amazing potential, but this is the challenge. Getting this very high-end, high-tech product to people out there, right? So per the financials, this is happening. And actually, I can pull out some more numbers here. Here we go. In 2020, they say we generated 0.3 million in revenue from customers in the acquire phase. So the small little companies that are just getting started, which yielded a contribution loss of $36.8 million in dollars. Now, in 2021, after a number of quarters of increasing distribution speed, for a reason that I will explain now, I figured out what they're doing. Those same customers generated 45.1 million in revenue, and here goes the important bit, which yielded a contribution profit of 7.2 million.
Okay.
So you go from negative contribution margin to very positive. And the only possible explanation per the definition of the metric is distribution.
Wow.
Right. And then the other thing about the product sticking, there's a very telling event, which goes back to my Spotify thesis. I don't think I told you about this, but in 2014, Square, or I'll say it the other way, Amazon tried to take on Square in their point of sales business. And until then, Amazon's kill rate had been 100%. Back then, if Amazon could copy your product and underprice you, you were dead, right? And Square made it through and stuff. That goes back to the innovation stack, right? So here we have an example for Palantir. They say, recall that Microsoft and Boeing launched a competitive ecosystem nearly a year before Palantir and Airbus launched Skywise, right? And today, 65% of the Boeing fleet is managed in Airbus Skywise ecosystem, right? So Microsoft and Boeing tried to do this before Palantir, and now Palantir is winning. So to me, that's an interesting one. And then the other one that I found is that I think it was in Q4, I'm not sure.
I've missed these. Thank you so much for sharing these. I've overlooked some of these.
I probably haven't shared them. I'll write them up in the deep dive. This was announced in Q1. In the first quarter, we were awarded a 5-year contract worth up to $90 million with the National Nuclear Security Administration to provide the operating platform to safeguard America's nuclear stockpile. So they're taking care of the nuclear stockpile. They beat Microsoft back in Skywise. Contribution margin is going up. These are the metrics and the anecdotes of a company that I think is A, sticky, B, has a very competitive product.
So you said that
All right, I couldn't said it better myself. But what other evidence is there? I found the Seeking Alpha article that everyone should maybe take a look at. I'll leave a link in the description. But it further bolsters this case, right? It basically outlines that, imagine a meeting where you go into the meeting, you're given a demo data set, and out of the meeting comes terrorist threats that the government previously didn't know about. That actually happened with Palantir. So check out this article, but it further bolsters this case that they're just light years ahead of anything else that's out there. And it's driven largely by this innovative culture that's driven by the leadership. So this really means when you start seeing competition out there that claims to do the things Palantir can do, or says or advertises itself like Pepsi, the Coke alternative, right? Which is just validating that this product is inferior to the product you really want but can't afford. Don't freak out. Look, marketing material and copycats, they're going to be out there, but to actually build something of value that delivers business value is really, really hard. Okay, so it's really easy in the technology space to build something that is a thin product that delivers basically no value, but looks cool and has a lot of cool features, or sounds a lot like something that is a true 0 to 1 move, but doesn't deliver the value. So it's real easy to do that. It's really hard to deliver something that actually delivers business value. So what we're going to look at next is something benign that everyone claims they do, which is data pipelines. Well, how do you make a data pipeline that delivers business value? Well, you have to secure it and you have to monitor it. Does anyone offer a real out-of-the-box solution for building a production-ready data pipeline? Not sure. I know that Palantir does, and that's what we're going to look at next.
Now, here we are looking at the flights dataset. On the left pane, I can already see a section titled Health Checks. From here, I can see an overview of the health checks on this dataset, which include answers to some of the questions I asked a few minutes ago. Now, I can already see that something is wrong, indicated by the critical failure on the time since last updated check. So for additional clarity, let's click View Details to see more about this. From there, we've been brought to the Health tab on the dataset, which gives us a more detailed breakdown of the dataset's health. So now not only can I see the current health status, but also indicators representing the historical health of this dataset, allowing for better traceability and root causing. So normally a dataset critically alerting after 133 days of staleness would lead me to drop absolutely everything to fix it. But in this case, we're just looking at a training pipeline that hasn't been modified in a while. So I'll at least finish off this video before doing something about it. But if we look into the configuration of this check, I can actually see that this alert started firing after 7 days in a moderate fashion, and then it escalated to critical after 9 days. So if this was in fact a production pipeline, we definitely would have done something about it by now. So now that you know what a health check looks like, let's add our own on a clean version of this dataset. Here at the bottom, we can see a health check helper, which shows the different categories of checks that we can add to our dataset. Let's begin by adding a job status check. Now, a dataset's job or build can fail for many reasons, anywhere from computational memory and resource related problems to, well, poorly written code, though I hope that's not the case for you. For the most simple configuration, we can just hit save straight away. We could also add a description to help others understand this check in the future. But now, if the build fails, the check will flare up. Let's assume that this is a pretty important pipeline, so we'll definitely need to add some thresholds to determine critical urgency, which will allow us to prioritize the different health checks when they fire. For example, if a build fails once, it could be the result of a transient network failure, but it also could mean that bad code has been merged. So for this case, we'll set it to escalate to critical after 3 attempts, meaning that after the third job failure, we will get a critical alert coming through our notification system. Now, health checks can't do very much if no one's aware of them. So one final thing we have to be careful about is who will get notified if this check fails. And there are two main ways of doing this. First, you can subscribe to a health check. Here we can see this eye symbol that says all failures, which actually indicates that we're already subscribed to this alert. And that's because if you create any health check yourself, you're automatically subscribed. Now, for the purposes of demonstration, I'll unsubscribe and then resubscribe. When you're not subscribed to a health check, you'll see the option to click Watch. And from here, you can either subscribe to all of the failures or just the critical ones. Being subscribed means you get a Foundry notification and an email when your check fails. Though technically you can modify your notifications in your account settings. Additionally, if we go back to the configuration of this health check, you may have seen the option to automatically create an issue when this check fails. If we check this, it will create an issue and assign it to a designated person or group. You'll hear more about issue management in a later video, so keep your eyes peeled. So now we've added a check on this data set, and I hope that gives you a better understanding of what health checks look like and how they can keep your production pipelines running nice and smoothly.
Right, so did anyone else catch that? You have a production-ready system for alerting and monitoring all this crap we normally have to build on our own out of the box. This is what it means to be a big data OS and not just another product, not just another Lego block in the wall you have to go build on your own. And also, it's all integrated with a security model that's cutting edge. Palantir's commitment, this is another thing people overlook all the time, is that their commitment to civil liberties has informed them on how to build security protocols that solve the problem that Alex Karp outlined in that interview recently, which is that to do what is ethically correct is incredibly hard technically, right? So they have this complete platform that is years ahead of their competition that is meant to deliver the value out of the box without you having to go and build and engineer all of these things on top of it, which is evidence that they are this sticky product, that they are this thing that is a true 0 to 1 move. It's 10x better than anything else on the market. So just something as benign as a data pipeline that you can actually govern with security protocols that carry over from the ingest all the way through to the applications out the other side, and it's built on the same no-code, low-code application framework and tools that you as the customer use, informing you that the company eats its own dog food. Like, that's even more evidence that they're that good and that the tool is that great. They use it internally to build things that further improve their product, like the pipeline demo you just saw, which is absolutely built on their low to no-code framework, right? So I think that the evidence is just compounding day after day after day, and I'm kind of stoked because the stock is getting hammered. Sum up today, I'm going to leave you with Sham again, who seemingly again saying something better than I could ever say myself in this call he did with Morgan Stanley. So take a listen, and I'll see you next time.
So maybe to start out, just from a kind of high-level perspective, Palantir is known as solving like the world's hardest data problems, and but unpacking that, I think people underestimate how much is under the hood, if you will, how many components of sort of the data equation that you guys have put together into your platforms and your solution portfolio to get it done. So can you give us a bit of an overview on sort of the strategy, vision, and sort of the product behind Palantir?
Yeah, over the last 15 years, we've had a maniacal focus on solving these problems in an end-to-end way, and we've developed a lot of tech as a consequence of that. So I think the most cynical way to think about Palantir is that it took something as sexy as James Bond to motivate engineers to work on a problem as boring as data integration, right? And it started with this idea that we were deeply committed to helping a handful of institutions in the world solve problems around counterterrorism.
Right.
And when you started engaging with these problems, you realized that the immediately precedent layer of the stack didn't really work. And then as soon as you saw that, you realized that the one before that didn't really work. And that if you were going to be the company we wanted to be, if you were going to have the impact in the world that we aspired to have, you had to take on end-to-end ownership of the problem.
Right.
And having that sort of focus over 15 years has really meant that we've developed 3 capabilities that I think we are world-class at, and there's really no competition for. And the first is that our platforms make the marginal cost of data integration effectively zero.